Good evening and a warm welcome. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Grihato Siddiqui. More than 10 opposition leaders and journalists have claimed to have received threat notifications from Apple, cautioning them about potential state-sponsored attacks trying to remotely compromise their iPhones, leading the opposition to accuse the government of hacking into their phones in order to go after some of the most vocal critics of the government. In response, the central government deemed the allegations as quote-unquote vague, but pledged to investigate, asking Apple to join the investigation with real, accurate information on the alleged state-sponsored attacks, also daring the opposition MPs to file a criminal case. In the wake of the brewing controversy, Apple Inc. in a statement also said that it is possible that some threat notifications may be false alarms and some attacks may not be detected. Now, attacking the opposition's accusations regarding the iPhone hacking notification is BJP's IT cell chief Amit Malviya, drawing a link between the global advocacy funder George Soros' NGO Access Now and Apple notifications. Malviya made these claims quote-tweeting a thread on social media platform X that highlighted how the George Soros-funded AccessNow.org has been mentioned as quote-unquote digital security helpline by the Apple notification that was received by some politicians in India to quote-unquote accuse the Modi government of phone hacking. Although remember, Apple has been sending out these notifications since the late 2021 whenever it suspects that some activity resembles a state-sponsored attack. It has so far notified individuals in 150 countries. These developments lead us up to that one curious question. From confirming that they will get to the bottom of this, to now making insinuations about compromising national security via Soros' Access Now, and in turn pointing to Apple's alleged involvement in it, hasn't the government gone from being in control of the Snoopgate Saga to now being somehow oddly placed as they indulge in a half-baked attempt at attacking the opposition and in the process end up raising fingers at a tech giant with plans to put in a $40 billion investment in India? Now, essentially, before we get to the bottom of this, let's first break down what are these Apple state-sponsored attackers alert all about. Now, these alerts are part of Apple threat notifications. The company claims they are designed to inform and assist users who may have been targeted by state-sponsored attackers. Remember, so far, however, Apple has not confirmed if the new batch of alerts are genuine at all or not. Although the company does have a pre-existing support page explaining this feature, Apple claims that state-sponsored attackers are not your average cyber criminals. They are exceptionally resourced and target a very small number of specific individuals and their devices. Apple's existing support page also claims that these attacks are highly complex in nature. They cost millions of dollars to develop and often have a short shelf life. Now, the American tech giant also explains what can be done if Apple users get this notification on their respective devices. If Apple discovers activity consistent with a state-sponsored attack, the targeted users are notified in two different ways. Number one, a threat notification is displayed at the top of the page after the user signs in to the appleid.apple.com. Apple then sends an email and also an iMessage notification to the email addresses and phone numbers associated with the user's Apple ID. Now, these notifications provide additional steps that notified the users can take help and protect their devices, and this includes enabling what they have called the lockdown mode. Apple has also claimed that threat notifications will never ask the users to click on any links, open files, or also install apps or profiles, or provide your Apple ID password or verification code by email or on the phone. Now, in the wake of that, let's now take a look at what exactly are the allegations that the BJP is making. BJP's claim number one is that there has been a communication that's been sent by an NGO which is linked to George Soros. Why do they say that? It's after that entire alert, that threat alert, was put out by various opposition leaders on the platform X, and through that, BJP is claiming that Apple's follow-up text was sent by Soros' organization. Number 3, they go on to claim that this follow-up mail suggests that Soros' link accessnow.org is the entire organization which is behind this entire saga, and hence there are these insinuations being drawn that this might also be an attempt to breach national security. Number 4, they go on to claim that the Soros-funded NGO is working with the tech giants, in that process also claiming that there is an Apple's involvement in this entire fiasco. Number 5, they go on to claim that there has been a clear connection between the alert and the Soros' funded NGO that is Access Now. The number 6 claim that they make is that Soros funded the organization's digital security helpline, which is being cited as part of the alert. Claim number 7, they go on to say that the opposition is giving a platform to Soros, trying to undermine India. They have so far not been able to exactly tell us the how part of it, but this is the claim that's been made by the Bharatiya Janata Party. So the big question remains, is Soros really behind the Snoopgate saga? Or did the BJP's exuberance to prove a defiant opposition wrong jump the gun on this one?
राहुल गांधी रहे थे, लेकिन ये जो स्क्रिप्ट थी ये जॉर्ज सोरेस की थी।
Why is this Apple alert come only to opposition leaders and to some journalists and not to anybody from the ruling party? We're asking for the government to clarify.
Hello, Moto.
Opening this up to my guest this evening, who are joining me on Plain Speak, Ajay Singh, who is an independent researcher who goes behind the X handle. In fact, he's the person, the storyteller. He was in fact quote-tweeted by Amit Malviya. So we have Ajay Singh. He will explain to us on what was his research all about. Also joining us is Mahima Singh, who's the spokesperson of the Congress Party. Kanish Kaur, who's a cyber expert, who's also with us. And with us is Advocate Sumit Chandar. We are also awaiting a guest from the Bharatiya Janata Party to join us. We will let you know as to who is going to be a part of this conversation. But Mr. Singh, let me begin with you. I'd want you to explain to our viewers what went behind this research of yours, and in turn then how are you making this connection of a George Soros funded NGO involvement into Apple's affairs?
So, see, in a nutshell, we have 34 generations of iPhone right now in use since 2007, right? Now, some of our political elites made claims that we have been using iPhone since last 20 years. Some of them said that we received notifications and our phones have been hacked. I have 3 questions to everybody. That when you read this, and Mr. Shashi Tharoor posted on his Twitter handle all the screenshots, one of the screenshots clearly says that enlist expert help such as rapid response emergency security assistance provided by the digital security helpline at non-profit Access Now. Now, I have one open simple question. Unlike Android, this iOS operating system of Apple is closely guarded sandbox. It's more like a black box technologically. So how on earth an technological giant like Apple is falling on the NGO Access Now, which was founded in 2009 just to spy on Iran on the behest of the US state and certain non-state actors to find out that what is going on behind the Iron Curtain of Iran during the presidential elections. And all those who found it, they were nothing but they were all the fellowship holders of the George Soros or Open Source Foundation. And secondly, if your phone is hacked, didn't you check with the Apple itself that why this Access Now is featuring? Who is Access Now? What role of Access Now has? Three, if you say that government is after your data, your phone, your conversation, government is snooping. I want to ask one more question that why didn't you check with the Apple? Apple clearly denied that we are using this term non-state sponsored actors as a generic term. We have sent it to 150 countries and Apple has close to 2 billion iPhone users, right? So none of these questions were addressed. Everybody wanted a clear political kleptocratic noise, and they went after that and started posting that I received this communication, I received this communication. But my simple question was that as an iPhone user, you should have used your sense. You should have asked a couple of relevant questions to Apple that is it sent by you, and if somebody have checked with Apple would have, I'm pretty sure they should have simply told them that no, this is not, we are talking about India specific or Modi government specific or a BG government specific. We are talking about 150 countries. Now coming to the George Soros connection, the Access Now as a think tank, as a non-profit, is coming under the IRS 501 guideline of the US government, where they are clearly mandated the freedom that they can describe that what are their donors and they cannot describe that those donors. So most of those left-leaning neocon think tanks, they work under the shadows. Nobody knows who's paying them and who's not paying them. What are the source of incomes? What are the contributions? Who are the donors? Whatever they
Okay, we'll get to that point later, Mr. Ajay Singh. But let me actually bring in Kanishk Kaur on this. This is an important thing that you have, in fact, flagged for our viewers. Kanishk, I went through the Apple support website. There's no mention of Access Now somehow. Yet, the alert that was in fact sent out to these 10 political leaders, MPs, they have in fact in that alert have had a continuation message from Apple which mentions about Access Now. How does one explain this?
So thank you for bringing me here. The key point is that Apple gets a lot of threat intelligence and signals from different organizations, and Access Now is an independent organization which conducts its own research and also shares this threat intelligence with Apple.
Okay.
Now, Apple could use third-party threat intelligence to find out if there are any state actors which are trying to hack or hijack systems of key people and then inform them. Now, this is a responsible disclosure from Apple.
Yes.
Which could be from any third party. It could be from Access Now, it could be from Citizen Lab, or it could be from a computer emergency response team of an organization as well. So they are going to validate, and if they find any value, they are going to inform the users. So Apple has done that responsibly.
Okay.
Bringing in a political element could get this really wrong today, because there are people who are not part of the opposition and who are notable figures in this country, which includes people like Samir Saran, who leads Observer Research Foundation, is as a president. He has also received this alert. There are people who are pro this government as well, who have received the alert as well. So calling it on a political measure would be wrong. I strongly recommend let there be a proper investigation. Let Apple share more evidence on why they thought specific people have been targeted. And it does not necessarily mean that the government has done it. State-sponsored hacktivism means that there could be hacktivists who could be paid by a state,
yes,
or could have been provided any kind of infrastructure, right? So it's a term which is most of the time misunderstood, saying a government is doing it. It could be a third party, it could be a large hacking group like Anonymous or another hacking community like Shiny Hunters.
Okay.
But
so Kanishk,
since
you're
the
essentially
attack were
saying that
continuous,
Apple can go ahead and give it up to the third parties, in this case Access Now, and they have been well within their rights and also very responsible in acknowledging it that they have given it to Axis now, which is what is being claimed by Mr. Ajay Singh, and now that it's become part of a big furor, considering this is an NGO which is linked with Mr. George Soros. I'd like to understand this one thing. A, why is it not part of the Apple support website? Is it not supposed to be on it? And in that case, does it require the downloading of any particular app? Because Apple clearly mentions that they do not ask users to download any app or in fact click any links. So how does it work?
So Apple as a company will not attribute to any third party when they are giving threat intelligence. As part of their responsible disclosure practice, they will only alert the user saying they have received some part of threat intelligence from an organization, and they will not even attribute whether this has come from any specific actor or a government. That's typically their responsible disclosure practice that they have been following so far. So it could be Access now, or it could be third party. Now, if Access wants to come forward and say they have done it, or there is a third party coming and saying Access now is involved, I don't think so. Apple would really put their name as part of their website, right? That really would ever happen.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for that and explaining it, Kanishk. Let me actually bring in Mahima Singh. Before that, let me also announce that Charu Pragya of the Bharatiya Janata Party is with us on the broadcast. But Charu, before you settle down, let me actually take in a question from Mahima Singh. Mahima, you have heard the two aspects. One, by the whistleblower, Mr. Ajay Singh, who has in fact spoken about the involvement of Axis now. Kanishk has explained why that involvement, because it's a process, it's part of Apple to go ahead and give it up to third parties, and it has been making these alerts, declarations in 150 countries since the later part of 2021. In that light, how do you read these insinuations or these claims that are being made now by the Bharatiya Janata Party?
Jai Hind. Gruha, I would begin by citing one very specific line from the Apple's statement issued yesterday. They said state-sponsored attackers are very well funded and sophisticated, and their attacks evolve over time, which means that detecting such attacks relies on threat intelligence signals. So, you see, there are many questions today that lie unanswered, and one very pertinent question that has lied unanswered for rather a long time. And that is, why did the government not cooperate in the Supreme Court inquiry when Pegasus happened? And that line has been mentioned in the Supreme Court judgment. Just now, when I was hearing the other panelists, somebody said that why just specifically say that the opposition is being targeted when there are people even from the government or not from the government, but people who are pro-government, as I heard, whose phones may also have been infested. Now, I would also like to remind our viewers that when Pegasus happened, the names on the lists included more than a couple of ministers, including Mr. Ashwani Vaishnav's. There was CJI's name, the sitting CJI's name. There were many pertinent names, and I think all of that raised an alarm in all our minds. Why did Jack Dorsey, the former Twitter head, had to claim that the government was pressurizing Twitter to censor the reports around farmer protests, and if they failed to do so, they threatened their operations and the staff safety in India? What did the government do, Gruha, we need to ask today, about the Aadhaar data of 81.5 crore Indians being offered on the dark web for around $80,000, and the breach has been reported to have come from Indian Council of Medical Research. Apart from that, we rank second globally, Gruha, in tech exposure breaches in India. And this also, is very well known to the government. What is the government doing? It is yours and my privacy at stake, let alone the opposition, which of course today is a big concern.
Mahima, I'm taking all your points, but when you mention Pegasus is the one claim that the BJP is also making to actually raise fingers against you, because while that entire investigation reached the Supreme Court, it was one of your senior leaders, Mr. Rahul Gandhi, who even refused to submit his phone for that inquiry. So that is a charge that the BJP is also leveling against you. I'll come to that point, but let me actually bring in. Let me bring in.
Just a moment, Briha. You must not pass. You've made a very. You've made
Quickly
a
make your
remark.
point. Make your point.
Yeah. So you see, just because Mr. Rahul Gandhi refused to give his phone meant that the government will refuse to comply with the investigation, will refuse to cooperate with the
Which is the
investigation.
question that I would
Are you
put
trying
to
to
Ms.
tell
Charu
us?
Pragya. Charu, the fact that Bharatiya Janata Party, while talking about this Snoopgate allegation, which is to do with Apple, and the association that BJP is now claiming goes back to George Soros, they're also mentioning Pegasus, but they've clearly done away with this aspect that their entire investigation vis-a-vis Pegasus has been a skewed one. So when we talk about this fresh Snoopgate allegation against the government, why did the BJP get so quick on getting in this George Soros angle after Mr. Ajay Singh flagged this? This was a quote tweet by Amit Malviya. After having announced a proper and thorough investigation in this case, why bank on this aspect only now?
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening.
And just as elections are around the corner and the opposition needed to do some attention grabbing, they have come up with this new gimmick of saying that spying is happening on them. And how many times has a complaint like this been lodged by the opposition and it has come to no conclusive proof? And because you mentioned Pegasus, we'll come to that. But let's go back and remember a time when Rahul Gandhi cried out about a laser light on his face, claiming it was a gun. It was a gun marking him. And it just created havoc for no reason at all. I don't believe that a responsible opposition is supposed to behave like this. And Apple has also clarified. Of course, we don't know too much about the case yet. The parliamentary committee will get to the bottom of it. But such kind of warnings have come to people in 150 countries.
Yes.
150 countries. So
which is what my question is. When you also say this and then you say this, there is a George Soros angle. One thing that I fail to understand is that BJP really goes on guns blazing, claiming this one person who is a hedge funder, who's a philanthropist, just because he had some, critiques for the Prime Minister in Munich. After that, there has been an open attack from the BJP against George Soros, but he has been politically very, very vocal and he has his views. So what is the problem?
Yes, and he has his views which are contrary to what this nation needs and what is good for India as a nation. So, George Soros is a situation which is entirely different from this, but the fact is that he is at the bottom of every single thing that the opposition keeps crying about. Is it because they're all taking money and funding from him, and that is why, all these coincidences are too many? Because here, the editor of The Wire, the one who front-ended the story about Pegasus, is the same person who's front-ending it for the Apple attack. And Apple has again clarified that it is not state-sponsored. So, and both the things are disconnected. Griha. First of all, if this happens in 150 countries, BJP government or Modi Sarkar is not responsible. It is an Apple problem. At the same time, you cannot do away with the fact that the funding for the platform Access Now comes from the George Soros Foundation, and the crux of that foundation very often has been found to be anti-India.
Okay,
and,
so let's talk about that aspect only, Charu. While you say that the funding that comes from, as far as Apple is concerned, comes from a George Soros funded organization, in this case Access Now, aren't you leveling open accusations at a tech giant, an American tech company, in this case Apple? There has to be a solid ground than just this one to level those accusations. So you are saying Apple was in cahoots with George Soros and the organization to probably point fingers at the Modi-led administration. Is that what you're insinuating?
So let me quote verbatim what Apple has said about the controversy. Apple has said that the attackers are well funded and their techniques are sophisticated and evolving. So Apple clarifies that this is a third party problem. It is a third party attack. And of course, the attackers and hackers are every single time very well funded and they are evolving. So you are now attributing a third party problem, which even Apple is concerned about, to the government of India. And that is logical. And how is it logical coming from a person who had to run to take a press conference today but could not submit his phone to prove a spyware in his phone device? How is it logical when the same person gets paranoid even about a laser light? Now, if you're accusing the government of something, the Supreme Court actually put together a committee to investigate about Pegasus. And what did Mr. Gandhi do? Mr. Gandhi did not even want to put forward his phone to clarify his claim. So you cannot just shoot,
No, but you still not answered my question, Charu. I'll come back to you. Let me bring in Mr. Sumit Chandar. He's been patiently waiting. Mr. Sumit, the fact that the government said that there is going to be a thorough investigation regarding these Snoopgate allegations, they also mentioned how Apple needs to come in and be a part of that investigation. That was sort of the logical step. Then comes in this George Soros angle, a claim that has been flagged by Mr. Ajay, who's part of the panel today. Is this the logical conclusion to where and how an investigation needs to be headed when it is an open allegation against the government at the center of snooping?
Ria, where the investigation is to be headed, to understand that you need to understand the laws which support this issue.
Yes.
There is first and foremost is Article 17 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, 1976. India was a signatory to this covenant. And this covenant is enforceable against the state. In fact, it's only enforceable against the state and not against private entities. This Article 17 says that no one shall be subjected to arbitrary or unlawful interference with his privacy.
Yes.
That is also why Article 19 of our Constitution gives us the right to freedom of speech, and it has been held in several judgments that telephone tapping would be an infringement to our Article 19 right to freedom of speech and expression. Another very important law, it has been held in various judgments that privacy is an intrinsic element of the right to life and personal liberty under Article 21 also of the Constitution. Now, with these laws in place, their investigation has to be done, and in the K.S. Puttaswamy case, where 9 judges of the Supreme Court, a constitution bench, recommended to the union government that there needs to be examined and put in place a robust regime for data protection and privacy. Now, with these things in place, already laws have come up. Digital Personal Data Protection Act 2023, which is very latest, in fact, it got the assent of the president only on 11th August 2023, has come into place. So this entire investigation which will now take place will be within the ambit of these laws to ensure and investigate where the privacy has been infringed, if at all it has been.
Okay. In that light, what you've just told to us, how do you see the Pegasus ruling by the Supreme Court, a claim that's been made by both the political parties who are part of the panel today, and how there were several loopholes or probably several things that were wanting in that investigation, and in turn what happened in the court?
See, the committee is in place. Obviously, the investigation, things will have to be brought to perspective. And if any kind of a privacy infringement has taken place, government possibly would have to show it in light of the Indian Telegraph Act Section 5, which says that only in case of public emergency or in interest of public safety, in the interest of, in fact, the sovereignty and integrity of India, that such, if at all, any infringement of privacy has taken place, it has been taken place within the ambit of the exception provided under Section 5 of the Indian Telegraph.
Okay.
So these are again matters of investigation which will be done and put up before the committee for further decision on this.
Okay. Charu, I will go back to the point that I was earlier asking you, but while you answer that, I also want to understand. There was a claim that was made by Union Minister Rajiv Chandrasekhar ever since these allegations were put on record yesterday. And he said that Union Minister Piyush Goyal also received a similar threat. Now, how do you back those claims? Do we see this as BJP jumping the gun? They are wanting to prove the opposition wrong, that they have forgotten the statements that they have made in the past now that they are claiming of a George Soros angle. And if that George Soros angle is there and there is an anti-India rhetoric in an element here, then how does Piyush Goyal feature in all this?
Griha, see, the fact of the matter is that if this is an external hacking attempt and if there is an attacker which has access to the Apple system, then maybe the ones who complained first were leaders of the opposition. And what you are saying about Rajiv Chandrasekhar, I am not aware of that. But it happened in 150 countries. Let's stay on that. So it's obvious that people who've received notifications, the net is far wider and larger than only a few members of the Indian opposition. It's a serious problem, and Apple is answerable. Apple needs to come on board and figure out what is happening, cooperate, and help us figure out, because over here the problem with the Indian opposition at least is, and I can speak for them if nobody else, is that for everything that happens to them, they cry out Modi, they say the fault is the Indian government, and they do not care to find out what's at the crux of any matter apart from this. Everything that happens, even if it is a tummy ache that they will get today, it is Modi's
So you
fault,
are
which-
saying that there is going to be a thorough investigation and Apple is going to be called in for that investigation. Have I heard that right, Charu?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And the country
All
is
right.
getting that together.
Okay. Mahima, I would give you the last word. I'd like to understand that this is a claim that BJP is also making, something that Apple had also put out as part of the statement, that these sort of alerts have been sent by the company to various users in not just one country, India, but 150 countries since 2021. In the light of that information, how do you actually see the current claims that have been made by BJP?
I'll tell you how, Griha. Because when we talk of the international indices, various times when we point out to a hunger index or a press freedom index, a BJP will come out crying foul and saying, see, they only rely on the international data. But when a breach like this happens on our countrymen, and that to opposition, look at the audacity of the BJP spokesperson who just said that, see, the opposition leaders, even if they'll have a tummy ache, they'll cry foul and they'll say, how many opposition leaders have been targeted not only in this Snoopgate, apart from that also, you need to remember 95% of people targeted by ED and CBI today are opposition leaders. I am asking a simple question, why did the government not cooperate with the Supreme Court of India? Why did the government refuse to comply with the investigation conducted by the Supreme Court of India? Is that a question that the government can answer? Why has the government not come clean?
Charu, I'll let you have the word. I'll let you respond to it. Yes.
Has the BJP ever come out clean and said that they had no role in Pegasus? They have not been able to make that one statement.
Okay, Charu, please answer.
Every move
Charu.
made by this government is questionable.
We got your point,
and
Mahima.
must be questioned so.
So listen to the Congress spokesperson here, Griha. First of all, she does not understand that this has happened in 150 countries. So why do you feel targeted? Isn't it giving yourself too much?
We are counting at 150, number 161 at Press Freedom Index. In a Press Freedom Index, we count at 161. Then you say, what about international data? Today you will go out looking for shelter under international data.
Really?
BJP conveniently goes looking for shelter under
Let me come in here.
data.
Let me come in here. Let me come in here. Charu, let me come in here. The fact that BJP has been time and again, and we've been seeing it since the press conference that was in fact spearheaded by Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad yesterday, they have mentioned this aspect that Apple has been sending out these alerts in 150 countries. On the one hand, you are saying that. Isn't it not denting your claim that you're now making through Amit Malviya? Amit Malviya quote tweets a whistleblower, in this case Mr. Ajay Singh, without even going behind the background of everything, and then you also claim that Apple has been doing that. But the fact that it has happened in India, don't you think that the government is responsible to check up on these claims and also this alert? The fact that Apple has been sending it, this is serious. It's not out of the ordinary that it has happened.
Absolutely. It's absolutely serious, and I agree with you, Griha. And the parliamentary committee is going to ensure that we get to the bottom of this in the best possible way, in the quickest manner possible. So nobody is denying that, but 150 countries is as true as the fact that the George Soros Foundation is funding,
they
etc.
need to save their crony capitalist friend. They'll take as much time as they need to save
I would
their
have to
crony
wrap it there.
friend.
BJP is saying that the investigation is on. The Congress is claiming that they did not adhere to the diktats of the investigation in the Pegasus case. What happens in this Snoopgate saga that involves Apple is something that only time is going to tell. Right now, there are 10 opposition MPs who have claimed that their phones have been snooped upon, going by this alert message that has come via Apple. What is the George Soros involvement? Whether that is a requisite that needs to be even looked at is the big question that we'd have to continue to seek answers to. With that, I'd like to thank all my panelists for joining me this evening.